At our daughter's third birthday party, my husband stood up, raised his glass and said, "I'm taking my daughter tonight and no one can stop me." Can you imagine having your entire world ripped apart on your child's third birthday, surrounded by 40 of your closest friends and family? Because that's exactly what happened to me when my husband, right after we sang Happy Birthday, dropped a bombshell that left me speechless, terrified, and utterly betrayed. My legs went weak. The cake plates in everyone's hands seemed to freeze in midair. My mom dropped her fork with a clatter that echoed in the sudden silence, and my dad, bless his heart, started moving towards him, a look in his eyes I'd never seen before. But my husband, he just held up a hand, completely calm, almost too calm. He looked out at all our shocked faces and said, "Before anyone calls the police, you should know I have full custody as of this morning." Full custody? My mind reeled. We weren't even separated. Not divorced, not even talking about it. Just full custody. Mia, my sweet 3-year-old, was oblivious, playing with her new dollhouse, completely unaware of the earthquake shaking our lives. What are you talking about?" I finally managed to whisper, my voice barely there. He just smiled a chilling, cold smile, and pulled a manila envelope from his jacket. He held it up for everyone to see. "Emergency custody order. Signed by Judge Harrison at 9 this morning." Rachel, my best friend and a paralegal, grabbed my arm, her grip like a vice. "On what grounds?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. She knew this stuff. His answer? Delivered without a flicker of emotion. "Unfit mother. Drug use. Neglect. It's all documented." My stomach dropped. He was lying. A cold, calculated lie, but the way he said it, so matter-of-fact, I saw people's eyes shift. I felt their judgment. My sister Kate, always my fiercest protector, stepped forward. "That's insane. Lauren doesn't even drink wine." But he just kept that awful smile. "Tell them about your prescription, Lauren. The one you've been taking for 6 months." My heart sank. I knew exactly what he was doing. I take anxiety medication, prescribed by my doctor. He knew this. "You know this," I said, my voice rising. But he was already shaking his head. "You take 3 times the prescribed dose. You buy extra pills from your friend at the hospital. I have receipts." The friend at the hospital was my cousin, Sarah, who worked in the pharmacy. She'd never sold me anything. But how could I prove that in this moment, with everyone staring? He wasn't done. "Mom watches Mia, crying while she's passed out on the couch. I have statements from concerned neighbors." Those concerned neighbors? His brother and his wife, who lived 2 houses down and hated me ever since I reported them for leaving their dog out in the freezing cold. My mom, who'd been quiet, finally erupted. "I'm here every day. Lauren is a perfect mother. What are you really doing?" Just then, as if on cue, his lawyer walked in. Robert Pearson. I knew him, recognized him from the country club. The guy who handled divorces for wealthy men who wanted to destroy their wives. He announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Mrs. Coleman, we need to discuss the terms of your supervised visitation." Supervised visitation? I was starting to truly panic now. I haven't done anything wrong. My husband walked over to Mia, scooped her up. "Daddy's taking you to Grandma's house tonight. Won't that be fun?" His mother lived in Florida. He was taking her across state lines. Rachel, quick as a whip, pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. This is kidnapping." But Pearson stepped in, blocking her. "I wouldn't do that. We have a valid court order. Interfering would be criminal." Just as Rachel started to argue, my dad noticed something. "Why is your suitcase in the hallway? And Mia's too." 3 packed suitcases. By the front door. This wasn't spur of the moment. This had been planned. For weeks. Maybe months. My husband, still holding a now fussy Mia, confirmed it. "We're leaving after the party. My new job starts Monday in Miami." New job? He'd never mentioned a new job. He worked for his father's company, right here in town. He looked directly at me, his eyes cold. "The court agrees that relocating is in Mia's best interest, away from negative influences." Kate, bless her, had been filming everything on her phone. Pearson saw her, and his composure cracked. "Turn that off. This is a private family matter." But Kate just kept recording. "It's my niece's birthday party. I can film whatever I want." That's when Uncle Paul spoke up. He'd been quiet in the corner, a retired family court attorney. "Can I see that custody order?" My husband hesitated, then handed it over. Paul read it slowly. Then again. A small, knowing smile played on his lips. "This is dated today, but references a hearing from yesterday. Where was this hearing held?" Pearson, flustered, quickly replied, Judge Harrison's chambers. Emergency session. Paul's smile widened. Judge Harrison is in the hospital. Has been for a week. Heart attack. I visited him yesterday. The party went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Pearson's face crumpled. You must be mistaken. Perhaps it was Judge Harrison Jr. Paul just shook his head. There's no Judge Harrison Jr. His son is Michael. He's a dentist. My husband put Mia down, so abruptly she almost fell. There must be some confusion. My lawyer handled everything. But Pearson was already backing towards the door, muttering, I need to make call, verify some details. Paul held up the papers, his voice calm, clear. These are forgeries. Very good ones, but forgeries. The seal is wrong. The case number doesn't match the county format. And the judge's signature is dated when he was unconscious in the ICU. Rachel was already on the phone, not with my family lawyer, but with the actual police. My husband tried to bolt, but my dad and 3 other men moved, blocking the door. You're not going anywhere with my granddaughter, my dad said, his voice quiet, dangerous. My husband looked at Pearson, desperate. You said this would work. You said she'd never fight it. Pearson was sweating, frantic. We need to leave now. But it was too late. Less than 3 minutes after Rachel's call, 2 police officers walked through my front door. The younger one went straight for my husband, while his partner moved towards Robert Pearson, who was still trying to subtly slide towards the hallway. My dad and the other men stepped aside, but they stayed close enough to cut off any escape route. Uncle Paul, holding those forged documents, started explaining everything before anyone else could speak. He pointed out the fake seal, the incorrect case number, the signature dated when the judge was in a coma. The officers listened carefully, taking notes, snapping photos of the papers with their phones. My husband kept repeating, it's a mistake. My lawyer handled it. His voice, that same calm, reasonable voice from earlier, was starting to crack under pressure. Robert tried to interrupt twice, but the officer shut him down. Quiet. Your turn will come. My husband's face was turning beet red. He kept looking at Robert, a silent plea. But Robert just stood there, sweating, staring at the floor. The officer made a call right there in my living room to verify Judge Harrison's hospitalization. I could hear someone on the other end confirming that Judge Harrison had been in intensive care all week. My husband started to back towards the kitchen, but my dad was already there, blocking his path. Don't move, the officer ordered. Mia, bless her heart, was still playing with her dollhouse, completely unaware that her father was about to be arrested. 20 minutes later, Detective Jeremy Walton arrived. He looked like he'd been called in from home. Gray hair, reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck. He listened to Uncle Paul, then Rachel, who showed him her phone with Kate's damning video. He watched it 3 times, his expression hardening when he heard my husband say, My lawyer handled everything. Call after call, he spoke to the courthouse, the hospital, other authorities. Each conversation seemed to make him more serious. He told them both to sit down, to not talk to each other. My husband tried to argue, but Jeremy cut him off. Sit down, or you'll be sitting down in handcuffs. Robert sat immediately. My husband hesitated, then slumped onto the couch. Jeremy called someone else, and I heard words like forgery, fraud, possible kidnapping charges. My mom, standing beside me, squeezed my shoulder. 40 guests watched, silent, plates of untouched cake forgotten. It was surreal. Jeremy put away his phone, walked over to them. Stand up, hands behind your backs. My husband's face went white. This is crazy. I have rights. You can't arrest me without evidence. Jeremy pulled out the cuffs. The evidence is the forged court documents you tried to use to kidnap your daughter. Robert started babbling about being an attorney, a misunderstanding, needing to call his office. Jeremy just said, you can call whoever you want from the station. The handcuffs clicked into place. Jeremy read them their rights, his voice flat, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Conspiracy to commit kidnapping, forgery of court documents, fraud, attempted parental kidnapping across state lines. Each charge made my husband's face grow paler. As they let him out, Mia looked up from her dollhouse. Why are the police taking Daddy away? Her innocent, confused voice broke something inside me. How do you explain this to a 3-year-old? I picked her up, held her tight, and told her Daddy had to go talk to some people. She'd see him later. She started crying, asking if Daddy was in trouble. I just held her tighter, watching him go. He looked back once, an unreadable expression on his face. Robert didn't look back at all. Before the police cars even pulled away, Rachel was on the phone with her boss, a family law specialist. She explained everything, her voice tight with anger and urgency. He connected us with Victoria, an incredible woman who showed up within the hour. She was maybe 50, sharp, carrying an expensive leather briefcase. She sat at my kitchen table, taking notes as I recounted the nightmare. She asked about my husband's behavior, anything unusual. I told her about the packed suitcases, the Miami job that never existed. She wrote it all down. Victoria explained that my husband's actions had actually made my custody case much stronger. Attempting to kidnap a child with forged documents? That screamed poor judgment, a willingness to break every law. She said we'd file for emergency custody and a restraining order first thing Monday morning. After she left, Mia asleep on the couch, my parents cleaning up the forgotten party, Kate and I sat in the kitchen. We watched her video, frame by frame. You could see everything. My husband's cold announcement, Robert Pearson's arrogant entrance, the packed suitcases, Uncle Paul exposing the forgery, my husband's face when his world crumbled, and most importantly, his own words. My lawyer handled everything. Kate sent the video to Victoria, to me, making multiple backups on different cloud services. We sat there past midnight, going through every detail. Kate kept asking if I was okay. I kept saying yes, but what was okay anymore? My husband of 5 years had just tried to steal our daughter, using fake legal papers, planning it for weeks, maybe months. Renting a condo, buying plane tickets, all while kissing me goodbye each morning, asking about dinner, playing with Mia before bedtime. I couldn't process it. My brain just kept trying to make sense of it, and failing. The next 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, were a blur of numb horror. My parents took Mia to the park so I could focus without her asking questions. I scoured every financial record I could find. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts. What I found made me physically sick. For 3 months, he'd been systematically siphoning money from our joint savings. Small amounts at first, then bigger chunks. Nearly $40,000. Gone. Transferred to accounts I didn't know about, couldn't track. Then I found it. Paperwork for a condo lease in Miami. Stuffed in the back of his desk drawer. Signed 6 weeks ago. The lease started next Monday, exactly when his new job began. Except there was no new job. And 3 one-way plane tickets to Miami, dated for tomorrow. He was really going to do it. Take Mia. Vanish. To Florida, where his mother would help him hide her from me. I took photos of everything. Sent them to Victoria. She responded within an hour. Excellent evidence of premeditation. This will significantly help our case. Rachel, my incredible paralegal friend, spent the weekend digging into Robert Pearson using her connections and access to legal databases. Her findings were damning. 3 other custody cases where he'd accused mothers of drug abuse to gain custody. 2 proven false. 1 mother even sued him for malpractice, settled out of court with an NDA. Online reviews called him unethical, willing to bend rules, suggesting clients create evidence. He coached clients to lie under oath. Rachel printed it all, a thick folder for Victoria. Pearson specifically targeted mothers with false drug accusations because it was an effective strategy, hard to disprove quickly. My husband had chosen the perfect corrupt lawyer for his twisted plan. Monday morning, 8 a.m., Victoria called. She'd already filed emergency motions with the family court. Hearing scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. The judge had fast-tracked our case because of the severity of the charges and the clear evidence of attempted kidnapping. My husband was out on bail, but a temporary restraining order meant he couldn't come within 500 feet of us. No contact whatsoever. His parents had hired a different lawyer. Robert Pearson was facing criminal charges himself now. Victoria warned me. They'd tried to minimize it, paint my husband as a desperate father making bad choices. We had to be ready to counter that narrative with facts and evidence. I spent Monday and Tuesday preparing. Victoria came to my house both days, going over my testimony, reviewing every piece of evidence. The forged documents, Kate's video, the financial records showing premeditation, the Miami condo lease, the packed suitcases, my clean drug tests from my annual physical 2 months prior, proving I never abused my medication. Every single piece fit together to show this wasn't a desperate mistake, but a carefully planned crime. Wednesday afternoon, in the courtroom, my husband's new lawyer argued the forgery was all Robert's idea. My husband, a worried father, manipulated by an unethical attorney, didn't know the documents were fake. Victoria, standing tall, destroyed that argument in under 5 minutes. She presented the Miami condo lease, signed 6 weeks ago. The $40,000 systematically transferred from our accounts over 3 months. The packed suitcases that proved he was ready to leave immediately. The plane tickets purchased weeks before the birthday party. Planning. Intention. Then, my doctor's letter confirming I took my prescription exactly as directed, my clean drug tests. And finally, Kate's video playing for the judge, my husband's own words, admitting. My lawyer handled everything. The judge, Judge Victoria, watched the video twice. She reviewed Uncle Paul's written analysis of the forgery, my doctor's testimony, the financial records, the condo lease, the plane tickets. Then she looked at my husband directly. Did you know the custody documents were forged? His lawyer tried to answer for him, but the judge insisted he answer. He mumbled he'd trusted his lawyer, didn't know they were fake. She asked about the Miami condo, the $40,000, the packed suitcases. He kept claiming he was trying to protect Mia from my drug problem, but couldn't explain why he'd been planning for months if it was an emergency. Judge Victoria granted me temporary full custody, with supervised visitation for my husband, 2 hours a week, at a supervised visitation center, with a court-appointed monitor present. She was genuinely angry, her voice rising as she spoke about the forgery, how it undermined the entire legal system, showed complete disregard for the law, how he had traumatized his daughter, destroyed any trust that existed in his marriage. She set another hearing for 3 months later to review the custody arrangement, but she made it clear his actions had seriously damaged his case for any kind of shared custody in the future. 2 days after the custody hearing, Kate called me while I was making lunch for Mia. She told me Detective Walton wanted to search Robert Pearson's office. I gave her everything Rachel had found about his past cases, the damning online reviews from angry clients. That afternoon, a search warrant. They found templates for fake custody orders on his computer, blank spaces to fill in names and dates. 6 other case files where he'd created fake documents for clients who wanted to take kids from their ex-wives. Notes about bribing a court clerk. Robert tried to claim attorney-client privilege, but Detective Walton shut him down. Privilege doesn't cover criminal conspiracy. Robert was looking at charges in multiple cases now, not just mine. The detective called me that evening to tell me what they'd found. He said Robert would probably spend years in prison if he was convicted on all the charges. I felt a wave of relief, knowing he couldn't hurt other families the way he tried to hurt mine. The next morning, my phone exploded. My husband's parents were on Facebook, claiming I was keeping their granddaughter away from them unfairly. His mother wrote this long post about how she was a loving grandmother who just wanted to see Mia, and I was being cruel by preventing visits. Several of their friends commented with supportive messages about grandparents' rights. None of these people had been at the birthday party. Kate and Rachel sprang into action. Factual responses, links to news articles about the arrest, screenshots of court records showing the restraining order, the reasons why. Within hours, the narrative flipped. People asked them why they were defending someone who'd forged a judge's signature and tried to take a child across state lines. His mother deleted her post, but it was too late. Dozens of people had already shared it. Their social media campaign had completely backfired, and several of their friends apologized to me privately for commenting without knowing the full story. 2 weeks later, my cousin Sarah called, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Investigators had questioned her about selling me pills. My husband's lie. Sarah was terrified, fearing losing her job or getting arrested, even though she'd never done anything wrong. I felt horrible that his lies were affecting innocent people who had nothing to do with our marriage problems. I called Victoria immediately. Have Sarah bring all her employment records, showing every prescription she'd ever filled. Those records would clear her completely. I drove to her apartment, sat with her as she pulled 3 years of pharmacy logs. She kept apologizing for being scared. I told her she had nothing to apologize for because my husband was the one who'd lied about her. We took the records to Victoria's office that afternoon. She called the investigators right there and explained Sarah's innocence. That part of the investigation closed within a week. Sarah hugged me so tight when we left Victoria's office and made me promise to let her know if there was anything she could do to help with the custody case. 3 days later, Detective Walton called my husband's brother and sister-in-law in for interviews. They told my husband they'd seen me passed out on the couch while Mia was crying. Under questioning, they admitted my husband had asked them to lie. Providing false statements in a custody case was a crime, and they could face charges themselves. Suddenly, they started backtracking, claiming they'd misunderstood what my husband wanted them to say. The detective told them their cooperation would be noted, but they'd still need to provide written statements correcting their earlier lies. My dad heard about it from a friend at the police station, calling me laughing about how quickly they'd turned on my husband when they realized they could get in trouble, too. That same week, Mia started having nightmares, waking up screaming in the middle of the night, asking where I was, if the police were coming back. During the day, she followed me from room to room, anxious if I left her sight for more than a few minutes. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without her standing outside the door, asking if I was still there. Victoria recommended Lorraine Burke, a child therapist who worked with young kids who'd been through scary situations. The first session, just Lorraine and me. She explained kids don't understand legal terms, but they understand fear, anger, disrupted routines. We'd start weekly sessions, Mia playing with dolls, gradually talking about the scary birthday party in ways that made sense to a 3-year-old. Mia seemed calmer after that first session. Slowly, she started being herself again, though the bad nights still happened sometimes. 2 weeks later, I watched Robert Pearson walk to the witness stand. Plea deal. Testifying against my husband in exchange for a lighter sentence. He looked older, more worn than I remembered from the birthday party, eyes downcast as he was sworn in. He admitted my husband had come to him 4 months before, asking how to get emergency custody without my knowledge. Printed emails showed my husband suggesting drug abuse and neglect as evidence, discussing taking Mia to Florida. Pearson admitted my husband had pushed for something faster than legitimate court hearings. He confirmed he'd agreed to create forged documents because my husband offered him $50,000. My husband's lawyer objected repeatedly, but it was all part of the deal. Emails proved everything. My husband had provided the false info. Pearson created the forgeries using templates he developed for other cases. The defense couldn't deny it. Every detail Pearson described matched Uncle Paul's analysis. Pearson wouldn't look at me or my husband as he left the stand. The trial continued for another week, but everyone knew the outcome. The jury got the case on a Friday afternoon. Rachel held my hand. Kate texted our parents updates. Victoria had warned me juries could take days, but this one came back in less than 3 hours. My legs felt shaky walking back in. I couldn't look at my husband, sitting at the defense table. The judge asked the jury foreman if they'd reached a verdict. Yes. Guilty on conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Guilty on forgery. Guilty on fraud. My husband's face went completely white. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, but he just sat there, staring straight ahead, motionless. Sentencing in 2 weeks. He was taken back into custody, a flight risk. I watched them cuff him, lead him out through the side door. Rachel hugged me in the hallway. Kate was crying even though she tried to hide it. Victoria said it was the best possible outcome for the custody case. The sentencing hearing was shorter than I expected. Prosecutor asked for maximum. Child kidnapping. Abuse of legal system. My husband's lawyer argued, first-time offender, desperate mistake. The judge wasn't having it. She said my husband's actions represented a serious breach of trust and an abuse of the legal system that could have traumatized a young child. She sentenced him to 3 years in prison, with possibility of parole after 18 months. My husband didn't react at all. His parents were in the back of the courtroom, his mother crying loudly, but his father just looked angry. The judge added that my husband would need to pay restitution for my legal fees and that she was recommending he have only supervised visitation with Mia, even after his release. As soon as the hearing ended, my husband's parents tried to approach me in the hallway, but Victoria stepped between us and told them any communication needed to go through lawyers. Within a week of the criminal conviction, the family court scheduled a hearing on permanent custody. My husband's parents filed a motion asking for grandparent visitation rights, which surprised me because they'd barely been involved in Mia's life before all this happened. Victoria explained that grandparents could request visitation in our state and that the court would consider what was best for Mia. We had a meeting in Victoria's office to discuss how to handle their request. I wanted to say no completely because I was still so angry about everything their son had done. But Victoria pointed out that Mia shouldn't lose her entire paternal family just because her father had committed crimes. She suggested supervised visits twice a month as a compromise. Rachel thought I was being too generous, but Kate agreed with Victoria that Mia might want a relationship with her grandparents when she got older. After thinking about it for several days, I agreed to the supervised visits with strict conditions about where and when they could happen. 5 months after that terrible birthday party, I stood in front of a family court judge again, waiting to hear the final custody decision. My husband had been in prison for 3 months by then, and his lawyer argued that he should still get visitation rights once he was released. Victoria presented evidence of the kidnapping attempt, the forged documents, and the criminal conviction. She also had statements from Lorraine about how the attempted kidnapping had affected Mia emotionally. The judge reviewed everything and said it was one of the clearest custody cases she'd ever seen. She awarded me full legal and physical custody of Mia, with my husband getting supervised visitation only after his release from prison. The judge also ordered him to pay child support and reimburse me for the legal fees, though Victoria had warned me that collecting money from someone in prison would be difficult, and I shouldn't count on seeing much of it. My parents were in the courtroom, and my mom cried when the judge announced the decision. Walking out of that courthouse, knowing Mia was legally safe, felt like I could finally breathe properly for the first time in months. Lorraine called me in for a meeting without Mia to discuss her progress. She said Mia was doing much better, and the nightmares had decreased significantly over the past few weeks. Mia still got anxious around her father's relatives before their supervised visits and needed extra reassurance afterward. But overall, she was processing the trauma in healthy ways. Lorraine recommended continuing weekly therapy for at least another 6 months because processing this kind of trauma took time and consistency. I asked if Mia would remember what happened when she got older, and Lorraine said probably yes, but that the therapy now would help her understand it wasn't her fault. We talked about warning signs to watch for, like regression in behavior or new fears. And Lorraine gave me strategies for handling difficult questions when Mia got old enough to ask them. Leaving that appointment, I felt grateful we'd found Lorraine, because I couldn't imagine navigating this without professional help. The financial situation kept getting worse, despite the custody victory. My parents offered to help me refinance the house to deal with the debt my husband had left behind. We spent a weekend going through all the paperwork and discovered he'd taken out a home equity loan I didn't know about, in addition to maxing out the credit cards. The total debt was close to $80,000, not counting the legal fees. My dad talked to his bank about refinancing options, and eventually we got a new mortgage that consolidated most of the debt, but increased my monthly payments significantly. I picked up extra freelance work, doing graphic design at night after Mia went to bed to cover the ongoing legal and therapy costs that insurance didn't fully pay. Some weeks I was working until midnight or later just to keep up with everything. Kate and Rachel remained constant supporters through all of it. They came over for dinner twice a week and helped with childcare when I needed to work late or attend legal meetings. Rachel brought groceries without asking, and Kate even started a college fund for Mia using money she'd been saving for a vacation. Having them around made the hard days bearable. 8 months after my husband tried to kidnap Mia at her birthday party, we were building something new, something that felt safer and more stable than our old life ever was. Mia smiled more now and laughed at silly things like she used to before everything happened. She still asked about her daddy sometimes, and I told her he was away, but that he loved her, which felt like the right thing to say, even though I wasn't sure it was true. The supervised visits with her grandparents happened twice a month at a family center downtown. And while Mia seemed okay with them, she was always quieter for a day or two afterward. I continued taking her to therapy every week because Lorraine said consistency mattered more than anything else right now. My parents came over most Sundays for dinner, and my dad had started teaching Mia to ride a tricycle in the driveway. The financial pressure was still overwhelming, and some months I wasn't sure how I'd make all the payments. But we were managing. I was still angry about the betrayal and probably would be for a long, long time. But I was also so incredibly grateful that Uncle Paul had been there, that he'd exposed the forgery before my husband could take Mia away. We were healing, slowly, genuinely. And I'd learned that sometimes the absolute worst moments reveal who truly loves and supports you. Mia was safe, and that was all that mattered. It's a lot, I know. My whole world flipped upside down in an instant. Have you ever faced such a sudden, shocking betrayal, especially from someone you thought you knew so well? What would you have done in my place, watching it all unfold? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments below.